Patrick Findaro, co-founder at Vetted Biz. Except I have Rich Moyer on, who's the CEO and founder of Hoppin Brands. Rich, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So there's a lot to talk about, and you have an interesting career trajectory. We're talking as you were a golf pro, successful entrepreneur in the hospitality space. You recently started franchising your concept, navigating between corporate or growing through franchises. But maybe we could just start a little bit how you transitioned from a golf pro into an entrepreneur in the hospitality arena.
Yeah, early on, right out of high school, I thought I was going to be a golf professional, get into the golf world. And then quickly, I say quickly, but it was a few years into the golf industry, I realized that I was on the wrong side of the counter. And at that point, I asked my members, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And all of them either own their own business or they were in sales. So I started to really change my mindset on trajectory of, what am I doing in the golf industry 60, 70 hours a week when all these guys are playing golf on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, every holiday, and I'm not. So that's when I started to really think, all right, which direction do I want to go? And I was 22 years old, and I ended up just picking up from Myrtle Beach and moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And that got into sales. When I got into sales, I realized if you can sell, you can do anything. Throughout my sales process, I met a mentor of mine that allowed me to, or helped me start my first business. And that was in a construction world. And I quickly grew that and sold that 2 months into my fourth year. Throughout that process, I actually started my first homemade ice cream shop with two of my really good friends. We currently have 5 locations and 2 more opening up. And then when I sold my construction company a couple months after that, we started Hoppin, and we opened up about 7 months after the idea came to thought.
And what was the appeal from leaving the construction space? Because there's a lot of businesses that aren't so sexy, but have high profit margins, and there's the demand for it.
Yeah. The construction space was very lucrative. I made more money than I ever thought I would make. The issue was it was very time consuming for me personally, and everybody was calling me. I was the guy. It wasn't a business that could run on its own. And I realized that I was making money, but I was stressed. I worked 15, 16, 18-hour days, 6 days a week. And it just didn't the money wasn't worth the time and energy that I had to put into it. And once I got into the ice cream shops, I realized that there's other ways to make money and it'd be fun and enjoyable and not have to be so hands-on. So the ice cream shops originally was just, hey, let's just invest in this. It's something fun to do with friends. And it turned into being a very lucrative business that we're continually expanding. And then Hoppin, when that idea with the technology changed the way anybody else was doing bars in the restaurant industry in Charlotte, let alone as we're expanding across the country, we'll be the first in a lot of the cities.
And yeah, I mean, what you were probably doing, I imagine construction, like selling like a pretty high value product, where going to ice cream, going to beer, like the owner doesn't need to be the one selling the service, or selling the product. It's just the customer is going to buy it, and it could be someone in the early 20s doing the selling.
Yeah, and that's something that, especially for ice cream, because it's people are going in to have fun. Then on the Hoppin side, because we are self-serve, our staff is literally focused on the customer experience and making sure that they understand how to pour their own beer or pour their own cocktail, and then really enjoying the time that they're there and creating a vibe and an experience, let alone just somebody coming into a regular bar.
Before you started Hoppin, where did you draw inspiration? Like, were there some concepts like in other states where you're like, oh, this is going to do well in Charlotte? Or was it like totally from, from a whiteboard?
Yeah, I wish I could say that the idea was mine, but a friend of mine at the time saw it in a different city. And he was like, hey man, this is a great idea. You should look at doing it. So originally the question was, hey, do you want to open up a bar? And my quickest answer was absolutely not. And then I saw the technology and I said, well, that eliminates 95% of a bar owner's headaches. And that's where the idea came from. So I'd love to say that I took the ideas for every business I've owned, but honestly, every business that I own or have owned in the past and sold came from somebody else. And I was just kind of the guy that could execute.
Yeah. I mean, my brother and I have started a couple businesses, and one we emulated from a competitor, which we've since passed. And the other one, Vetted Biz, it didn't exist at all. And we have to change consumer behavior and a lot more time to, break even and to hit that product market fit. So when you can copy and do it better, that's generally going to be an easier way to start up and break even faster.
Yeah. For us, it wasn't ever really to be better or do it better. It was do it differently. How can we succeed? And to be successful, you have to be different in today's world. And we've realized that, we must be doing something right because every single self-serve tap room around us has closed in every market that we're in. And then there is one left in Charlotte. And they've asked me to purchase them in the last 4 months or so. So I think we're doing something right, but you have to be different. Your marketing's got to be really, really good, and you just have to be different overall.
And I know your technology is differentiated marketing, and then you had mentioned customer service. Is there any other facet that is sort of differentiated to your competition that has failed during the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I think for us, our decor and just the vibe that we've created is very, very important. Our service is definitely hands down very, very important. Our cleanliness across the board, it's very important to us as a brand. And it's something that I think with COVID in general, people pay attention to a little bit more than they used to. And we're just not that darker bar. It's a little bit more light, a little bit more modern. Yeah, more modern, classic. And for us, I think that's kind of some of the key factors. And obviously, we have a lot of insider things that, if people become a franchisee, that they can learn more about and what makes us successful. But we've learned you can't just throw self-serve taps on a wall and think you're going to be successful. And I think that's what a lot of people saw or thought we did. And there was a lot more that goes into it.
How do you deal with the regulation? Because, we were talking before we started, like some places self-serve cocktail, sometimes just beer. Like, how do you navigate that, whether it's city, county, or at the state level?
Yeah, going into every market, we have to really understand how easy is it to get an alcohol license, whether that be just beer, wine, or a liquor license. You have some states that there's limited licenses. So those states might not make sense until they open those up to unlimited licenses. And then every state's different, or sometimes it is county level or city level. So really just understanding, and we work with local alcohol laws lawyers that can dive into the details and say, here's what you guys need to know before you come to this market. Here's the things you can do. Here's the things you can't do. And that's really easy on the front end.
What states are you most excited about opening where there is a great demographic and it's easy to open?
Yeah, I think state-wise, Texas is huge. Tennessee, we love Tennessee. I mean, I'd really love to find, we're looking at a corporate location in actually Houston and Nashville. But if we had a franchisee interested, we would move forward with them instead. So that's super. Two locations, two cities, and then Texas and Nashville and actually Tennessee are great markets. Florida is a great market. The fastest, we're focused on the fastest growing cities in the US is kind of our phase one.
That makes a lot of sense. And you have just an influx. Like I'm in Miami. Hopefully you guys open here sometime in Wynwood or some other neighborhood. Yeah. But there's just an influx of 20 and 30-year-olds moving to Nashville, Houston, Miami, a lot of these cities and those states that you mentioned.
Yeah, they're the ones that still want to go out, have fun, and kind of have that money to be able to do that.
And what are we talking about money-wise to open up a Hoppin?
Yeah, our initial franchise fee is going up to $59,995. So $60K, give or take. And then your initial upfront cost all in to open your doors and have some operating cash is $750 on our FDD is $750 to $1 million. But we've realized we'll tighten that number up as we open up a few more locations across the country and have a better idea. We're probably on the lower end of $750 once you get TIA.
Yeah. Do you see tenant improvement much? Landlords being cooperative?
Yeah, super cooperative. They love the concept, and a lot of the places we're going into are kind of cold, dark shells. So they're offering anywhere from 50 to 100 plus in TIA, which is super, super helpful. Now, some of the buildings that are existing buildings, it might be on that lower end of $30 to $40 a square foot.
What's the staff numbers look like? How many employees you need for Hoppin?
Yeah, staffing is very limited. So as an owner, you can be a semi-absentee owner with 9 to 10 staff members, as long as you have a really solid manager and a really solid assistant manager.
So that's nine or 10 people on payroll. And are these part-time employees, full-time? What's kind of the demographic for the employees?
We really focus for the general manager position of finding somebody that's already a GM at a food or a restaurant industry because they have great experience and they're probably tired of dealing with the food scene. This gives them the opportunity to work less hours and make more money. So we focus on finding somebody in that range. And then you have 2 full-time, which is your manager and your assistant manager. Then the rest are part-time. You have 1 or 2 shift managers, and then the rest are $3 an hour part-time employees.
Interesting structure. Yeah, it's super lean compared to some other bar concepts that we've reviewed. Can you tell us a little bit about the financials? Like how do Hoppin franchisees make money?
Our gross profit margins are 78 to 80%, and it's mostly self-serve. We do have a full cocktail bar, which is very easy for our customers to get drinks because we have 60 plus bartenders on the self-serve. Even though you're serving your own beer, there's always an opportunity to get a beer without waiting or a drink without waiting. So the cocktail bars they move really, really quickly. So the opportunities are obviously your Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and Thursdays are your busiest days of the week with just normal volume traffic. And then corporate events, private parties. We do a lot of, wedding after parties or wedding showers, things like that. So the event is a huge way to pull in additional revenue, and the corporate parties during the week are big.
And you had mentioned the food trucks. Like, how does that work? Like, do they pay you, or do you pay them to come on site and offer food to your clientele?
Yeah, the way we've worked recently or, in the past is strictly just working a partnership. It's an even trade. If it's a food truck, they park on our spot on our property, and they utilize us as kind of a free rent. As we move forward, the option will be a food truck. You'll get a percentage of their sales if they want to be there. And actual restaurant that is a neighboring restaurant, they'll provide a full menu, and we can set that up as a QR code, or our customers can go over there and order, and then it gets dropped off by that neighboring restaurant. And then the third one is actually a food hall, which we would build a food stall, maybe 300, 400 square feet inside of Hoppin, that we sublease to a local food operator, whether if it's tacos, pizza, burgers, something of that sort.
And then, going back to kind of just why franchising, and you have an ice cream concept. You mentioned 5 locations, opening a couple more, Hoppin's expanding, LOI in Texas, franchisee opening up in South Carolina. Why did you decide to go to the franchising path with the self-service tap room and not go franchising with ice cream?
We went franchising with the self-serve because of being first to market, trying to move a little bit quicker. 1, and then 2, the upfront capital to do that all corporately, we'd have to raise a lot of money or really, really figure out that trajectory. And it just made a lot more sense as a franchise business because it is very easy to operate as a franchise owner. And it's something that, the upfront cost capital it's a lot if we're trying to move quickly in the market. The ice cream side is the opposite. We're trying to stay more regional because that's how that name is going to carry. And then 2, it only costs, $50,000 to $75,000 to open up an ice cream shop compared to $750,000.
And have you guys raised outside capital, or is it more just you're the primary investor and there's friends and family, or how are you guys structured?
Yeah, so there's 2 partners. Myself, I own majority at 75%. And then NASCAR driver Martin Truex Jr. is a good friend of mine, and he is 25% owner. So he's silent partner, very silent partner, which is always good. But yeah, he's our kind of our deeper pockets. I funded the first location myself and then brought him on in the middle of our second location.
Very cool. And I speak to a lot of founders, whether that franchise brands or even startup brands here in Miami. There's a lot of founders that are moving here throughout the pandemic. And usually if there's 2 co-founders and they raise money, like one of them spending like half their time just like dealing with investors and on the financing side, where your structure, you can just focus on operations and improving the product and services, I imagine.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have Martin as a great partner and a silent investor. I got friends that are in this world, and the one partner is focused on raising capital, and it does take up a lot of time. So I'm fortunate to be able to focus on the growth and focus on working with new franchisees and my current team, and just growing as a brand overall, which is really cool because that's where I
are most of your franchisees coming from?
Currently, they're all coming from either word of mouth or people coming into our locations that are currently open, or we're just marketing. My director of marketing is actually spending some dollars on the cities that we're trying to go into. And those are just leads are coming from that.
Cool. Yeah. It seems like it's always best to start with like people that know your brand, because you'll change different things in your system and they'll be up and down with you, rather than if someone has no affinity for your brand, they're not going to be, as tied and as willing to go through the ups and downs in the beginning.
For sure. Yeah. In the beginning, it's great. I mean, I think it's very important to find the right franchisees early on, because they'll sell the next 50 to 100. And we're actually signing on with FranChoice in April. So we'll get rolling with them as a broker consultant. And then we signed off with IFPG, and we'll get, rolling with them here this week and next week.
So you're ready to really scale up now?
Yeah, we got to the point where we know what it takes to open. Like I said, it's very simple for training purposes and actually getting our franchisees up and running, so we can move at a really rapid pace. There's just not a lot that goes into it once you're open.
And how are your franchisees looking? I guess you mentioned you finance, it was mostly equity, I imagine. Are your franchisees doing like a combination of equity and then like an SBA loan, or how are they getting the Hoppin location open?
Yeah, we have one actually here in North Carolina who's going to have their own money in it. They'll be self-funded. We have Rock Hill in South Carolina. They are utilizing an SBA loan plus some investor money. And then Fort Worth, Texas, they are doing an SBA and then their own money. They've been fortunate enough in the real estate game, so they have a decent amount of money, and then they're going to pull an SBA loan for the additional.
What's the ideal site look like? I heard on another podcast it's good to be like near other bars and restaurants, but is it like a single unit, or are you in line? What's an ideal site look like for Hoppin?
Every city's different, honestly. If you can find a standalone building in your city and still be close to all the other bars and restaurants, it's great because you can create your own vibe, have your own outdoor patio. But it really, really depends on the city in itself. But we're 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. Ideally, if you can have a second level mezzanine, so 3,500 square feet on the bottom floor and then 1,000 to 1,500 on a mezzanine level, it creates the vibe that we have at our main corporate location. But that's that ballpark, 4,000 to 5,000 square feet. And then our architect design team can make it fit right in.
Have you studied any other businesses, whether they're franchises or not, in kind of the self-service model? Like, just coming to mind, I think of like frozen yogurt, but I imagine there's like other ones that are much more innovative that you can kind of borrow from.
Yeah, we've looked at those models. They're definitely the same. You're just dealing with kind of a different target market, because kids aren't coming in to serve beer to themselves. But we've focused on some of our competitors that have tried to expand on the licensing side, and then we have a couple other competitors that are kind of in the franchising, but they're not the same business setup as we are. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and for us, it's really focusing on what we can do best and what has made us successful.
I imagine it's really divide and conquer with the franchisee, where you focus on the product, the processes, best practices, and then the franchisee obviously hiring, training, firing. But what else is the franchisee focused on day to day?
Yeah, if they're going to be like a semi-absentee, one of our core values is definitely helping your staff and your team become better people and just become better in their career, whether that's growing within their current location or helping them find their lifelong job or their lifelong business. So that's very, very important. And then the second one for franchisees is just being in the community and bringing events in and just being that higher level person that actually is paying attention to that. Now, if you're wanting to be more of a full hands-off franchisee, multi-unit, the focus would be just communicating with your managers, at least once a week or once every 2 weeks to really understand what's going on and making sure that you have somebody in place to handle the sales and the event side of it, because that's one of the biggest pieces to pull additional revenue in outside of your volume revenue.
Yeah, it makes sense. Strategic sales and cultivating talent. And few people really do that well. But if you can, and you have the right guidance from Hoppin, you can probably grow and open up a lot of locations.
Yeah. And that's the goal. I mean, I want all of our franchisees that be multi-unit owners and being able to get to a point where I was before we started franchising, which, I'm never in the tap rooms on a day-to-day basis, but I dealt with our managers and our team at a high level and make sure that things are running like a well-oiled machine.
How long did it take you to go from 1 to 2 tap rooms?
So Hoppin opened up in December of 2017, and it was very, very successful. That was when the franchising idea kind of started, because people were like, man, this is awesome. We need it in our city.
I want to start one.
Yeah. And we just weren't there yet. And, we quickly were like, all right, we need to open up another one, but we didn't want to extend too far. So we opened up a very similar concept in Charlotte. And this was before Charlotte is what it is now. The demographic was a little bit different, and then the population was smaller. So we opened up our second location called Pinhouse. Pinhouse started, we were a little bit close to Charlotte being just still a small city. So we didn't want to open up another Hoppin that was within basically an 8-minute drive. So we were like, all right, what can we do that is very similar, self-serve, but we can make it a little bit different to draw people to it, instead of them saying, well, I've been to the Hoppin in South End. Why would I go to the Hoppin in Pleasant Midwood?
You want another destination.
Yeah. It's just something that would draw people. So we created Pinhouse, and Pinhouse is the same concept, self-serve, but the decor is like a Great Gatsby decor. Oh, cool. And then we have duck pin bowling. And the duck pin bowling is something different. It's a revenue generating, fun, entertainment type competitive game. And it allows for amazing corporate events, because it is something that they can bring their teams to and say, all right, we're going to go bowling and hang out, but it's not your traditional bowling.
Yeah, I imagine you guys can really hit this hybrid remote workforce. Like most of our teams in Argentina, and my brother and I go down there every 6 months, and like we do like a lot of like team building exercises.
Yeah.
And apparently that industry is just booming because people are working remote. So whether it's monthly, quarterly, like there's a lot more events because you need to if you want to maintain the culture of your company.
Correct. Yeah, we noticed in the last 2 years with the pandemic, people saying, hey, will you open your doors for us to have a team meeting like 2 hours early than you normally would open? And then we'll hang out and drink and be able to have our little corporate fun. So it's been beneficial. That the pandemic has been very, very difficult to work through, but it also brought some different ways to make money.
And that's a key sale for the franchisee, where that could be like 5 or 10K.
Easy.
Like cultivating that relationship and be like, you can come here monthly. We'll set you up.
Yeah. And then once that rolls, that company does it, another company sees it, and then boom, you get, 3, 4, or 5 of those a month, and it's just easy income.
So talk a little bit about your core values. Like what type of franchisee do you want? Like you mentioned like the mentoring side, and you want someone that's going to invest in the young talent, but what else are you looking for in a franchisee?
Yeah, I think right now we're working with the broker network is really some multi-unit operators, people that have been in the game before, and maybe they're on their restaurant side and they're just tired of dealing with food and they want something a little bit more absentee or semi-absentee. So at a high level, that's what we're focusing on with the brokers. But for me, it is good leaders. And I think that comes with positivity and a good perspective. And that's all we're looking for. It's very easy business to run. And if you can find the right people that can smile and make sure that your customers are happy, customers are 99% of the time pouring their own drink. So it's a very, very easy business to run. As a franchisee, we're looking for people that are just great leaders, have really good perspective, and somebody that could be a great cheerleader for their team.
Where do you see like consumer trends, like in terms of like just beer, cider, wine, and how are you adapting kind of the product mix across your corporate locations and then now these franchise ones?
Yeah, it's something that we have to pay attention to. I thought going into it in 2017, like we just had beer, wine, and ciders. We didn't have cocktails. And after the pandemic, we started to realize like they still want beer and wine, but they also want to take a few shots and have a cocktail or have a couple beers and then have cocktails. So we had to adapt and we had to make that change. And now our locations moving forward will be set up for, a small cocktail bar and 60 plus self-serve taps. So adapting with that, being, front of it, our director of operations is on top of that. And then our director of marketing is always involved. And then we have a great, right now, a fractional CMO who's, her and her team are on top of it. So just staying on top of it. And that's with anything, man. Even our technology, we got to make sure that we continually add new things. And we're about to release a loyalty app, which is for the customer right on their phone. They'll be able to utilize gift cards and have their loyalty points and a VIP program that we're launching here in a few months.
Very cool. A lot of nice initiatives. I'm sure you learned a lot from 2017 when you launched that first corporate location and then opened up more. What's something that you wish you knew before about franchising that maybe could have accelerated your growth?
Yeah, I mean, we truly started franchising, or actually marketing our franchising September of last year. So over the last 3 months, just having phone calls with consultants and having phone calls with other franchisors, just to be more structured early on and make sure you have everything out of your mind and on paper would easily, free up. So as we're growing now, we're also trying to, as a team, work on putting our game plan, and we're 95% done with it because we've had, time to do that. But just really understanding, like going into it, you think, all right, we got our policies and procedures, we got everything in place. And then you're like, wow, I got to get everything that I know and my brand voice and everything that's brand related off of my mind and off of my director of marketing's mind and onto paper. And then every single step that we do. So just setting that brand book and that, I always call it our brand Bible, making sure that is all set in place. We even realized from our first franchisee what we will do different with the next one.
Very cool. Rich, any concluding thoughts for prospective franchisees or even current franchisees that might be looking at adding another brand to their portfolio?
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, we have a very transparent, open book with everything that we can share. Obviously being a emerging franchisee, or franchisor, there's not too many of the financials our lawyers want us to share, but reach out. We'd love to speak with you. If the opportunity is right and you're a good fit for our brand and it's a good fit for you, I think just reach out. We'd love to chat.
What's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Yeah, me directly. My email is rich@hoppinbrands.com. And then if you want to reach out to our director of franchise development, that's Zach@hoppinbrands.com. So those are the easiest. And then you can follow us on social media or LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out on those. It's either Hoppin Brands or Hoppin CLT would be the two main ones.
We'll be sure to include that in the description for the YouTube video as well as the podcast. Rich, really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your insights on franchising and scaling up your business in
I appreciate it.
Self-serve taproom space.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time and look forward to hopefully meeting you when I get down to Miami.
Definitely. Let's do it, man.
Sounds good.